Welcome to the show today. Our guest is Tim Hoffman. Tim is not only an International Baccalaureate graduate, otherwise known as the IB, but also runs a tutoring company for IB students who are preparing for the IB exams. We're actually in London, England, where Tim works and also runs his company from. First off, welcome, Tim, to the show.
Thank you very much.
Tim, the IB program is not known to everyone. It's the International Baccalaureate program. It's very popular in the United States and growing, I know that, and also it's been around in Europe for quite some time. Could you tell us a little bit more about the history of the IB, as well as what the purpose and the vision of the IB program is?
Of course. The IB started back in 1968 in the International School of Geneva, which was it accommodated for international students who might be moving around because of their parents' jobs or whatever the reason might be. That allowed them to take a program with them if they changed schools in between, or if they needed to take what they learned from their home country to the country they're living in now. The idea is it makes a very rounded student, not just academically, but they have to do outside activities as well. They need to explore their local culture, things like that.
So what really separates the IB program from other programs? I know you're not as much familiar with the United States program, but at least let's take the A-levels in England.
Well, that's one area that I know a little bit about, having taught both A-levels and IB as a tutor myself. The IB, obviously, if we compared it on a point-for-point basis, in the A-levels you take 3 subjects. Some students choose to take more. The IB you have to take at least six subjects. So straight away you've got that comparison. Besides from that, with A-levels, you take modular exams. So you take one topic and you do the exam for it. For the IB, you do the whole 2-year system and you have your exams at the end of that system. For the A-levels, you can take resits. For the IB, you don't. Things like that.
How quickly is the IB growing?
Here in the UK, there are currently 200 schools that offer the program. In the States, I think it's 800 schools. So around the globe, it's about 1,500 different schools that offer it. In the last 10 years, it's, I think, doubled the number of schools that offer it here. That's for the diploma program, which is the equivalent of the SAT kind of age group, whereas the MYP, which is the pre-IB program, is growing a lot faster in the States than it is here. But I think we're getting encouragement from the government to offer both the diploma and the MYP simultaneously. If you can offer one, you offer both.
You know, what surprises me sometimes is that there are a lot of people out there, both in the UK and the rest of Europe, as well as the United States, who do not know about the program. And perhaps they even have the program in their school, but don't know about it or haven't really been encouraged to find out more about it. Why is that?
Well, one problem I found with students that we take on is that a school will offer both A-levels and the IB. And first of all, budget's an issue. You can't usually offer both of those simultaneously because with the IB you're offering 6 subjects, and then you multiply that by the number of students in your school, you're going to need a lot of teachers.
So with the current crisis in Europe, I would imagine it's a little bit more difficult at the moment to start up some of the IB programs.
It's certainly an issue. And also you have to consider that the training budget that you need to give to teachers who might have been teaching the A-levels for who knows how many years to suddenly switch across to the IB, it's going to cost them a bit of money. Not just that, but government funding. I know in the States, I think in Utah, they've cut all government funding for the IB because it's too expensive to offer so many subjects.
Is there any prejudice, for example, in the UK against the IB from people who have been following the A-levels, teaching A-levels? Is there any type of a problem with that as far as one of the reasons why it's maybe not as communicated as well?
I think communicated is an interesting word because they don't communicate if that is true. I'm sure that schools wouldn't make it obvious if they're saying we're not taking on the IB because we prefer the A-levels. I know universities try and take a very impartial view. They say we see them both equally. But whether or not they're preventing information coming out because they prefer the A-levels, I wouldn't say that that's necessarily the case.
Okay. What about your personal experience? Let's go into a little bit more detail there. You were actually attending the Antwerp International School.
That's right.
My daughter's also attended there, so obviously I speak very highly of that. Also, I was a member of the board. But in your experience there, really 2 aspects of that, and that's the international experience, and then there's the IB program, which is also very international. But can you tell a little bit about your experience and how it benefited you?
Well, the international experience I can speak extremely highly of. I think being at an international school in itself is a massive bonus, a plus point for any student, because it means you've got the option to go to university anywhere in the world, and you've got a solid grounding, understanding different cultures, understanding, you know, where your parents may have lived before, that culture in that country. More importantly, with the IB, I know many students' parents move around with either government agencies or big multinationals, and as such, they needed to change schools midway through. So to have the IB offered in English, French, Spanish, means you can go to basically any country in the world, and you'll find an IB school. The other thing that I found is that when I went to Oxford, when I went on to university, if I told someone I'd done the IB, it was, wow, that's impressive, which says a lot about...
Oh, it does have a good reputation.
It has a very good reputation, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think it breeds a very, very inquisitive student, and one that respects many cultures, and one that wants to go on and learn more because of the independent study that you have to do to get the diploma.
Wow. Was there anything about the AIS program that was different than other programs?
Other IB programs?
Other IB programs.
I think...
As far as the offerings, or do they vary from country to country?
Yes, well, I mean, the main difference is whether the core language you're taking is English, French, or Spanish. Those are the three languages I believe they currently offer the subject in. So say you're taking maths, you can take maths in French or maths in Spanish. At AIS, it's a purely English-speaking school, so you can take an A1 language, which is equivalent to, say, for A-levels, you take English, you can take English in the IB at higher level, standard level. You can also take French at equivalent level of English, at A1 level, high level, standard level.
Now, which subjects did you take at higher level and standard level?
Well, this is one thing that I'll tell you what I took in just a second, but what I say to many students is you have to pick the subjects that you need for your degree. So I sat down, my brother went through the system before me, luckily enough. My parents knew a thing or two about it, and our counselors knew a thing or two about it as well. So I chose to do engineering. I pursued a career in engineering. I took high-level maths, physics, and economics, and standard-level Dutch, English, and computer science. Taking Dutch, I was at a huge advantage because I took it a year early, which gave me only 5 subjects to complete in my second year, freeing up time to do the extended essay, theory of knowledge, CAS, those kind of activities.
Now, maybe you can actually talk about CAS, theory of knowledge, a little bit more detail to explain not only what it is, but why that would benefit a student.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that's one of the main benefits of the IB, is that it's not purely academic. You have to do things outside. I think I mentioned the self-study, independent study aspect of it, and that's the extended essay. It's a 4,000-word essay. You get to choose the title, and you choose the subject in which to write it. And that, in combination with TOK, which is effectively epistemology, theory of knowledge, combines to give you what's known as the maximum 3 bonus points.
But what is the theory of knowledge course like?
It's a good extra to the course, I'd say. I think a lot of students don't like it. They see it as wishy-washy. But then you go to university and people study philosophy, and you realize how important it is and how useful it is to you.
Is it helpful as far as the logic, pursuing a topic and a logic progression? Does it help with writing skills?
I wouldn't say it helps with writing skills. It helps with presenting skills. You have to do a presentation, which a lot of other subjects don't require. But one thing it does help with is the ways of knowing. That's the key aspect of it, is different ways of knowing, which is inherent in the IB vision statement, which is inherent in the way that the IB is taught. So I think it's a very crucial part of the course. Even if you don't excel at it, it helps you to understand the broader picture of what the IB is trying to deliver.
Maybe you could also give a little bit more detail about the CAS program. What does it stand for, and what does it involve? Sure.
CAS stands for Creativity, Action, and Service. And in total, you have to complete 150 hours of those 3, in whichever combination you like. You have to have done a certain amount of each, obviously, to merit.
What would be a typical for creativity, for example?
Creativity might be you're in a band, and band practice counts for your creativity. Action might be you play football, you play soccer, and you've
so it's mostly sports related.
Mostly sports. Doesn't have to be sports. You could be part of the local gardening society or something like that, as long as it shows that you're an active individual.
Okay.
And service is that you're giving back something to your community. So
in your case, what did you do in each of those 3 areas?
Creativity, the band, I was speaking from personal experience, that went down. Action was pretty much every sport I could get my feet into, those pair of boots, and I was on that team. And service was going to local hospitals, where you just, you help out in the kitchen, you help out with the cleaning stuff, that kind of thing. There was an old age home near us at school, at AIS, which I speak of very fondly as well.
Actually, I have to say my daughter was at that same home for her points.
Yeah.
It was a very helpful program.
Which is great, because then you strike up an allegiance with local institutions, and it's a great kind of giving back to the community, because often a school which has many international students at it might be frowned upon by the local community. if you're feeding back into it, both through service and amongst other things, then they're going to welcome you, and they'll welcome you into the community, which is so important for international students, I think.
That's right. You know, I was mentioning the difference between the perception of the IB in different countries or whatever, but the UK, I think, is still growing. It has some hurdles to overcome just with the budgeting problem, I think, not because of the quality. I think if people recognize the quality is really high. But in the United States, in my experience, my daughter went there in Florida, actually, to one of the a very highly rated IB program. And I remember the IB coordinator there talking about how the universities perceived the IB. And I know that the Florida State universities were actually very much predisposed towards the IB program.
Yeah.
In fact, gave preference over it. And in the U.S., it's a little bit different because you're actually accepted into, I think, the university by your grades,
right,
and instead of a predicted score. So with the grades, what they would do is you would get a grade, say a 3.0 out of 4, which is the system in the U.S., but they would add 0.75 to it. So you would end up getting a 3.75 out of 4, which really placed you in a range of really be able to get scholarships. So it's really well perceived in the United States. Let's hope that it continues, I think, in the UK.
Absolutely. Well, one thing I'd say on that is that the UK, the way it works, because there's so many different programs. In Scotland, you've got advanced hires. In the UK, you've got A-levels. And one issue with A-levels is that there's 3 different governing bodies. You've got OCR, AQA, and EdExcel. So you can take the same A-level, but you might be graded by 3 different bodies. The IB is a non-profit organization throughout the world, and UK universities use a system called UCAS to compare the different systems that you're applying with.
Right.
The issue there is, how do you find parity between 6 subjects and someone doing 3 subjects? So at the moment, I believe that the UCAS merit for 45 points, which is the maximum on the IB, is 720 points. That equates roughly to 3 A stars and 3 A's at A-level, which is virtually unheard of.
Meaning nobody takes 6
no
A
one
levels.
No one would do.
All right, maybe it used to be 3, but some do 4.
Some do 4. I mean,
Okay.
and the difference with A levels is you might do 3 and 2 AS levels, which is effectively the first year of the A level, and that will count towards your UCAS points. Whereas for the IB, it's only any course that you finish at the end.
So based on what you just said, it's I would take from that it's actually a more intensive program.
I would argue that it is. I think many universities would. But the problem is, even though UCAS seems to value it more highly, universities, so I got the offer I received for Oxford was 40 points with 7s in high-level maths and physics. Friends who took A-levels, because the A-star didn't exist, were asked for 3 A's at A-levels. Now, the UCAS system shows that there's no parity there, but the universities, because they're not used to the system,
Right.
that's all they can ask for.
Do you see that getting better over time, more consistent with the universities?
I think it has. I think the fact that A-levels have introduced the A-star is a step forward, because they're showing that they need more differentiation between subjects. An issue there is that an A-star per subject, on average, 8% of students will obtain it. A 7 at a higher level, on average, 3 to 4% of students will obtain it. So you're still not matching them up like for like. But how can you when you've got 2 very, very different systems? So it is an issue, but it's clearly one that both schools and the government are striving to match together.
Okay, we've talked about the IB program, the history, the benefits of it, talked about a little bit about your background and experience with it. Now let's talk about your company, the
Elite IB.
Elite IB.
Yeah. Well, I started it about 18 months ago. The concept was I was tutoring quite a lot. I have a strong passion for tutoring. And I found that because word of mouth would get around and more students would want tuition, I couldn't handle it all myself. So I'd pass it on to friends, but then I thought I can take a commission for this. And I also realized that the IB is growing so quickly that we need to offer a service for it. Because, as you say, there is ignorance. Not all schools know, the intricacies of the system, the nuances of TOK and extended essay and that kind of thing.
So how many tutors do you have working for you right now?
Currently, we have 40 tutors in the books.
That's quite substantial.
It's grown quite quickly, but I think the main thing is we try and, being called Elite IB, I think was for a reason. We try and maintain an elite standpoint where we only take the most exceptional tutors that are on offer and try and offer an exceptional service, which means that we try and maintain a small team and offer a very, very good service based on their experience either of the IB or an Oxford background, or at the very best, a combination of those two.
So in some cases, you have really Oxford grads that have done the IB. That's what you shoot for.
That's the aim, but as I'm sure you can imagine, they're under high demand for the big companies that might be after them. So I might get them for 6 months. But what I found more and more is that many tutors on the team are actually working professionals because they miss academics and they want a bit of academics in their spare time. So they'll do 2 hours a week teaching on the weekends or whatever it is. And that's great because then they don't suddenly go off on their gap year to travel around Peru for 2 months or whatever it is.
So you're based in London,
yeah.
But you actually have activities, tutoring activities elsewhere. Can you talk a little bit about how wide that program is, which countries?
Sure. Well, I mean, the idea with tutoring at the moment, I think not just my agency or our agency, but all the agencies, is that the online side of things is really, really taking off. And as such, we can take tutors who are Oxford graduates or students still in Oxford and offer that service in Singapore, Hong Kong, New York, wherever it is. At the same time, I have tutors that went to Oxford and have subsequently moved to Singapore or New York, but they're teaching students back in the UK. And with the advent of Skype and Scriblink and companies like that, which offer such great face-to-face online capabilities.
So are the online programs, is that basically using either Skype or one of those things where you're actually face-to-face?
Yes, yeah. Well, we encourage face-to-face because it makes it more personal. The other aspect of it is every tutor when they join gets a graphics tablet so that when they write things, it appears on the screen both for the tutor and for the client. And they can see things at the same time as you might when you're face-to-face. And you can take print screens, you can send each other documents. It's working very well, and it's a side of the company that we're looking to expand overseas.
So you have about 40 tutors available. You're working around the world. Some of them are actually living and working in those parts of the world. And you have an online service. Where do you see it going from here?
I think the main thing at the moment is allegiances with schools, because as you say, with the ignorance and the potential for growth in so many schools who want to take it but aren't ready to take that step, if we show, look, there is help, there's an agency which can help you out, just make that transition a bit smoother.
So you're actually helping schools, or at least trying to encourage them to actually take on the IB program?
I think that's the next step. We've helped schools who have just taken it on. So there's 3 schools in the UK at the moment who we work very closely with, and the principals will come to us and say, we've got a student struggling with this subject. Can you step in? Can you help out with that? And it means that for them, they know that there is someone to rely on who's done it before, because maybe they've not taught the IB themselves. And it makes, as I say, it makes the transition easier for them. And what we're trying to do is help schools who maybe aren't taking it yet and are looking to take it.
Our viewers, many of whom, well, most would be English speaking, not necessarily as a native language, but they're around the world, but quite a lot will be from the United States.
Right.
Is that also an area that you're teaching in or would look to in the future?
It's an area we are looking to. We have students who have come from the US to England for summer. We offer crash courses before exams and summer courses, and we've had a few American students take part in those. We haven't had too many students living in the States who we offer tuition to, but it's certainly an aspect we'll look to grow in the future. As I say, we're trying to maintain a very, very prestigious setup at the moment, so we don't want to expand too quickly. But as opportunities arise and as contacts grow, those are avenues that we'll look to explore.
So, Tim, let me just go back or concentrate a little bit more on Oxford, some of the students there, and in relationship with the IB program.
Yeah, well, the IB, as I say, is viewed very highly in the UK, but universities aren't going to step out and say, we prefer it, because that's not going to go down too well with A-level schools.
Right.
With that said, at my college, St Edmund Hall, of 7 engineering graduates in my year, 3 of them took the IB. Now that's that's not the proportion of IB versus A-level students applying.
I never would have expected that, so that must be very unusual.
Exactly, and myself, I obtained 44 points in the diploma. One of my colleagues, Nasia, got 43, and a further colleague got 42. So we all did very well on the IB.
And what about the A-level?
And the A-level students, and this is a point I'd like to make, is that the A-level students, they all got 3 A's or 4 A's at A-level. The A-star wasn't offered at the time,
right.
So it was just pure A's, which was maybe why they lent towards the IB students for the intake.
So did most of them take 3 or 4?
I believe most took 4.
Okay.
I believe most took 4. A few hadn't taken further maths, which was a big stumbling point for them in the first year, because As you can imagine, an engineering course at Oxford is pretty heavy on the maths in the first year, and you need to know your stuff. But given that 3 of us had done the IB and done so well, Nasir went on to get a very, very high first, which is the best you can get. Right. I got a 2-1, which is just below that, and then Anji got a 2-2, which is below that. So it goes to show that you can do very, very well in the IB, and it gives you a good foundation for university, but it's not everything. You need to get there, and you still need to excel once you get in there. It's a foot in the door, but you have to smash it open with your personal statement and your interview.
We talked about your company, Elite IB, and the fact that you're operating effectively around the world in different forms, either personally, face-to-face, or via the internet, or online services. Technology is moving at a rapid pace. Do you have any idea where it's moving to as far as how it would affect your company?
One aspect of technology that's taken off, and I know other agencies have looked into it, it's not something I've looked into personally at the moment, is recording videos, tutorials that students can sign up to and watch multiple times. If they haven't understood something in class, they go home, they watch the video again from a tutor that's closer to their age, maybe a bit more exciting, a bit more interactive. They can then take the test, have it marked by that tutoring agency, and they can follow the course that way around. It's an avenue I'm looking into, but obviously the capital to record all those videos, get that all on the cloud, that kind of thing is going to cost quite a lot. But I think that might be the next step for a lot of IB schools, because at the moment you can only offer the IB if you're an IB world school, which means students in the middle of Australia, or the middle of Africa or something can't take it because they're not going to get to school on time. But if they can do it online, that might be the next step.
Wow, fantastic plans. Okay, is there any other area that we didn't touch on? We went into your experiences, really the details of the program itself, the theory of knowledge, the CAS, the benefits.
Well, maybe one thing to touch on is the fact that you can take certificates. If you're not going to take the full diploma, the certificate option is available. You can take just 2 subjects if you want to. And there's confusion with universities. They don't really understand that that's an option available. So say you're very good at maths, you can take maths, physics, and computer science.
Right.
You're not going to get a diploma, but you'll get certificates in maths, physics, and computer science. And I think the IB needs to tout that a bit more so that universities are aware that they've still completed the whole course.
Is there anything else the IB, if you had to talk to the direction or the board of the IB program worldwide, anything else you would say to them?
I think one thing that needs to be improved is not necessarily the IB itself, but offering the MYP and the IB simultaneously. I think one flaw a lot of schools have is that they offer IGCSEs or GCSEs or whichever program they might offer. And then you go from that into the IB. Basically,
are there any things, if you had to talk to the International IB organization, what might you suggest some improvements might be?
I think I'd suggest that schools need to offer the MYP program, the middle years program, alongside the diploma program, because often there's a big jump, there's a big gap between.
The NYP program is what used to be referred to as the pre-IB, I think, at least in the United States. Exactly. But that really is the same, the pre-IB.
Yes, yeah. So it's the IB is 6.
That's in like 9th and 10th grade in the American system.
It's the years leading up to the IB diploma program. Okay. And here in the UK, they do the GCSE. The IB diploma program is 6 subjects, and the MYP is 8 subjects, where you take the 6 core ones and you add physical education and I believe IT onto the end of that.
Right. Okay.
So it's the kind of subject you'd expect students of that age to be doing, but it instills you with the system of the IB. I think the system is such an important thing to understand. How to obtain your points, when to hit deadlines, what your internal assessments are, that kind of thing. And the MYP grooms you for that, whereas the IGCSEs is more exam focused.
Okay. Tim, I forgot to mention in the beginning of our show that you're actually South African. You grew up in Belgium.
That's right.
Went to Oxford and now are here. Can you tell us a little bit about just that aspect, kind of the international life that you've led?
Well, it leaves you with a very curious accent, I suppose, is one thing.
Yes, I was trying for myself to figure out exactly where it was. So.
It's a great thing to have, I think. You end up at Oxford, where the majority of students might be English, but then there's that section on the side who aren't. And it means you can relate to both of them, because I went to an English-speaking school with many English friends, I had many American friends, I had Indian friends, Lebanese. So you've got all these different cultures, and it means wherever you go in the world, you can say, hey, I lived there for a while, or my parents are from there, or I can speak that language, where perhaps other students don't have that advantage.
Speaking about different nationalities and cultures, within your own tutoring pool of 40 tutors, you have several nationalities.
Yeah,
from what countries are they?
We've got a whole range. We've got a few Greek people on the team. We've got many Americans on the team. Obviously, the core group are English. There's myself. We've got a few friends who also went to school with me and then on to Oxford, a Russian and an Indian girl on our team. So we cover pretty much any school that might offer the diploma program. We've probably got that nationality covered.
All right. And is there anything about your company that we haven't talked about that you'd like to take this opportunity to express?
Yeah, well, one thing that we use, because the company started off as purely Oxford graduates teaching the IB, we've subsequently expanded to take on graduates from Imperial, UCL, Cambridge, some of the very, very top universities in the UK. But because we all had to go through the Oxbridge interview process, we're now trying to offer that service. So it can be quite a daunting interview to go through. You turn up, there's 3 people in a room that know a lot more than you do, and you've been going through your answers in your head 100 times. We've been through it, so we try and take students through that process before they go for their interview. This is what you might get asked, this is what you should answer. I know that guy, I had lectures with him, he gets drunk on a Friday night. Just some things that make them more comfortable in the interview process, which is something that we're trying to advertise at the moment.
Right, okay. Tim Hoffmann, thank you for being a guest on the show. Thanks for explaining the IB program, and we hope to have you back in the future.